To order. I tell you, it's really great to be back in God's country on a beautiful day and in God's house, thankfully. We got back a little early from our trip due to a lady named Maria who is hovering around the Outer Banks where we were headed for this week, and we changed our plans, and very glad that we did, since this morning I think they're evacuating over there. And, wouldn't have been good to be there in a motorhome. I'd like to welcome all of you here today. We have a special guest, Mr. Austin Perry from our law firm. They have a lot of names, so I'll just call it the Dickerson Perry Law Firm. Leaves out a few names, but we know who they are. If you would, all please rise and hang live, and we'll give the invitation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
God works according to his own timetable. When you accept that, you're able to enjoy where you are right now and where he wants you to be. God gives you a vision and you commit yourself to it. There's no opt-out clause. Stop projecting into the future. When you live in yesterday, you end up with the if only. When you try to live in tomorrow, you get the case of what ifs. Remember the popular song, one day at a time, sweet Jesus. That's all I'm asking you to do. Just give me the strength to do what I need to do. Yesterday's gone, sweet Jesus, and tomorrow may never be mine. Lord, help me today. Show me the way, one day at a time. Lord Jesus, we just thank you for this wonderful community, for this wonderful valley that we live in. Use us to your ways. Voice of Jesus, holy name, I pray.
Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, slave, as you see by the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose one stripes and bright cause through the perilous fight. For the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bursting in air, gave through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Rule. That was not planned, but it was great. Really surprised to see that our council members can sing. Some of them can actually carry a tune. That was fun. Thank you. In your folder, you have the minutes of the August 15, 2017 meeting. We need a motion to approve those minutes. We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All those in favor, that be known by saying aye. Aye. The motion carries. Also in your folder, we have the agenda for today's meeting. We need a motion to adopt that agenda for today. We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion of the agenda? All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. And the motion carries. Again, thank you all for being here. There are a lot of people that we need to thank today for all the things that have been done for us in the last few weeks as we've weathered the hurricane, and especially our Public Works Department, who worked tons of overtime. I know that James told me that one day he worked 21 hours, got 4 hours of sleep, and came back. That's commitment, and they really did a fantastic job. I've received a lot of emails from a lot of you thanking them, and we're passing those on to them. We want them to feel good about the job that they do and know that we appreciate everything that they do for us. The police also, all y'all were very active during that time and helped dramatically in communications and helping people who have problems, and we really appreciate all that you do. We also want to thank all the people who have been working on the fall decorations. They're starting to really come together and look great. And I know that they'll be continuing. And by the time our Fall Fest on October 21st gets here, Sky Valley will be looking beautiful. Hopefully we'll have time between now and then to cut some grass, which we haven't been able to do lately, but we will. And I just want to thank all of y'all for all that you do for this community. The Visitor Center has been very busy. In 2016, we greeted 2,241 people in the Visitor Center, and they came from all over the world. Most of them within the southeastern states, but a lot of them from as far away as Australia and Europe and different places. In 2017, through 8 months, we've had 1,362. The fall is always really big, so we expect to greet at least as many this year as we did last year, which is great. Home sales are doing really well, as you might note from the realtors who are keeping us up to date on the sales that take place. In 2015, there were 34 homes sold. In 2016, there were 40. So far this year, there have been 32. If you project that out with the ones that are under contract now, we feel like we'll probably exceed last year's home sales. And that is really great. I think it says a lot about the marketing that we've done and the fact that our economy is turning around. And really excited about that for Sky Valley because it helps us all with our property values. And appreciate all the hard work that people do within our marketing committee and the realtors and the work that they do. I understand from talking to Ed Morley, the president of the golf club, that it's doing really well. I've greeted quite a few new members this year. On a lot of the home sales, the membership was transferred during the process of the sale, which is great. As you all know, we're in the middle of an election cycle. If you haven't noticed that, you might want to check your emails or your mail. And as is usual, people are excited and enthusiastic about their races, and they're doing all they can to promote themselves and to get elected, which is the way the democratic process is supposed to work. I've noticed that there may be some lack of understanding about exactly how your city government works, so I want to review that for you this morning. We're what's known as a mayor-council form of government, and what that means is that the council is charged with putting a budget together, passing an annual budget, and amending that budget during the year as is needed as things develop. They're also charged with the responsibility of providing city management with policies and procedures and passing ordinances. And in this great day and age, you can visit our website and everything is on there that tells you exactly how the city government operates, what the policies and procedures are, the minutes of every meeting that we have, and what's covered in that meeting, and what passed and what did not. And Weta, welcome to the meeting. Good to see you. So I just wanted to review that for you. In my term as mayor, which I have 2 more meetings after this one. It's been fun, but I'm looking forward to it ending. The council has passed a budget each time, and most of the time unanimously. Occasionally there was one dissenting vote on a budget. But also the budget amendments, which occur during the year, and once a year, usually toward the end of the year, we make one budget amendment to cover anything that changed during the year. And that has always taken place. And the mayor and city manager are charged with the responsibility of implementing the budget and the policies and procedures that the council gives us to work with. If there's any point in time where we see that there's a need to get outside a budget item, we will come to council, we must come to council and have that approved, which is what we do. The other thing is relative to the city park. I want to review for you how that process took place, because there's been a lot of discussion about it, because it's obviously something big and new for Sky Valley. In October of 2016, the council had a workshop to discuss a survey that had been done in the community as to whether or not they wanted a city park. And since they did, we discussed how to go about implementing a plan. We were all together on the idea that we should do the park in-house so that we could use as much in-house labor as we could, and local talent as we could, volunteers as we could, and save 25–30% in overhead profits that we would pay to a general contractor. So we basically became our own general contractor. And as we decided on something new to add to the park, if it was something we could do in-house, we did. If it was not, we bid it out and accepted the low bid, as occurred on the pickleball courts and the pavilion and restroom facilities. On the walking path, part of it was already there. Steve Mason, who works with the golf course, had helped do some of that work originally on that walking path that was put in when the previous developer was here. The council decided to do more work on the walk path, extend it, and make it a circular path that could be enjoyed by the community and visitors to the community. We thought that we were going to be able to use Steve Mason's staff after hours and pay them to do all the work. But the process in getting Mr. Merrill to agree to an amendment to his lease of the park so that we could put the walking path in took a while. So in the meantime, the golf course staff got busy and could not do the work. So we started looking for other options. We could not find anybody in the county who was willing to come up and give us a proposal on doing it. So we asked our city staff, if the public works staff, if they would be interested in doing it after hours. And they considered that for a while and decided that it was too much. So we were kind of dead in the water, and Jim Wells, the guy that does a lot of our landscaping for us under contract, said that he would do it for the price that we had estimated in our proposed guidelines for the park. And so that happened. Also, during all this process, there were, on the upper end of the park, past the pickleball courts on the left, there were 3 drainage ditches that were unpiped, one of them pretty good size. And we had always recognized that they were a problem. Actually, it had someone drive their car into a ditch at one of the events that we had, I think it was Fall Fest. And those ditches were eroding into the creek and filling the creek. So for quite a while, we had recognized that we needed to do something about that. And our Public Works Director, James, came to me and he said, you know, we can pipe those things and cover them up and eliminate that problem. It was within budget, so we did it. And when we were in the process of doing it, we knew that when we finished, we were either going to have to grass and mulch that area to make it look good, or the idea came to us that we could gravel it and provide additional parking, which we'd all been discussing anyway as a need for the park. So it costs a little bit more, but we graveled it and it's turned out great, because now I've noticed that when people are down there walking or playing pickleball, they're using that as a parking area, which has worked really good. On the other side of the road, across from the area that I was talking about, we had, where the creek comes under the road, we had a lot of erosion there on that side, and it was really getting almost to the road, and there was a big drain area coming down the hill right into that area. And so as part of the paving project this year, we added that to be fixed, and it really solved a major problem for us, and that became part of the walking path. And that was all included in the park budget, the park expenditures. So that's pretty much a full discussion of what has taken place on the park. It's complete except for a little bit of additional work on the restrooms and a bridge to get us across the creek on the walking path. And hopefully the council will get that done sometime soon, so that we'll have a complete circle to use as a walking path. That completes my remarks. Now I'd like to ask the council for any remarks that they might have, starting with Mr. McNair.
That was very nice.
Could you use the mic?
to have this.
Could you use the mic, Molly?
Usually they give me a mic that doesn't work, so. I don't understand why. But anyway, that was very nice.
It's not running.
Up
The mic doesn't work.
to date. And I want to thank the great crowd that's here, and they will. Lively doesn't like me. He gives me that old mic. Anyway, thank you all for being here. We got a big agenda. I want to thank the mayor for his comments early to bring you people up to date as to how city government works, good, bad, and different. And so, if you stay patient, you'll hear more. Thank you.
Mr. Durbo.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending. Again, as Bob said, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your explanation there. I also want to mention that he is correct. The real estate market is moving really good in Sky Valley. The house, in order to live in Sky Valley now, you're going to have to start paying more money. We've run out of a lot of the real cheap and inexpensive houses, and that's a good thing. And that's driving our market values up. Let's keep that going, and let's keep Sky Valley going.
Mr. Stahl.
Good morning, glad to be back in Sky Valley. I want us all to try to remember this week, though, and a few weeks ahead, all of our neighbors and friends who had damage to their homes in Florida, who've had damage to the property, and maybe even damage to their family members. So keep them in your minds, your hearts, and your prayers, and all those folks that have suffered this fall from these terrible storms. we were lucky to avoid huge amounts of damage here. Thank God for that. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Mr. Lively.
I too would like to thank everybody for being here. This is probably our best crowd this year. It's just like church, front row's empty.
Quick hit.
I appreciate you coming, I appreciate you getting involved. That's one thing that I sort of have tried to preach, is we need to get all of you people involved in this because you've got so much talent out here, we need to use that. Thank you again.
Ms. Larson.
Good morning, everybody. I want to thank the city council, not the city council, the city employees for getting things cleaned up. I understand from Vaughn that we had 26 roads, if I'm correct, that were blocked because of trees, and they got that cleaned up within the day, which was absolutely awesome. And I want to thank them, and I want to thank the people who have stepped up to run. Ed Stile and Bob McNair for mayor, Milner Lively, who's an incumbent, Paul Wheeler, Alan Poinkowski, Neil Howard, Melanie Durbo, and Debbie Dowhouse Curtis. Anyhow, I want to thank all of them for stepping up and taking a good interest in our community. I want to thank everybody, and y'all keep the world smiling.
Thank you. City manager, departmental reports.
Good morning. Just want to make a quick few announcements. The public hearing on the 2018 city budget has been scheduled for immediately after the council meeting on October 24th here at the Lodge. The proposed budget is based on the rollback rate of the millage to 16.110, which the council has already set the millage rate. You should have received your tax notices. There was an error on due date. They had printed 2016. So if you haven't already paid that, you'll be getting a reprint of that. In fact, many of you have already received that, I know, but it's not, you don't have to pay it twice unless you just really want to. It's just to reprint and give you the correct date on that bill. So for the also on the budget, it'll be considered for adoption at the regular monthly meeting in November, which is we changed the date to that, so it's November 14th at 10 o'clock. We will be having a council workshop on the budget. I believe that's the 17th. I'm not sure if we've determined the time. No, not yet. Okay. So October
Budget workshop, October 7th.
October 17th, yes. So we'll be getting that information out to everyone as soon as the time has been established. For the election, Councilor Larson talked about the people that are running. Those people that are not registered to vote, who desire to register to vote in the general election, may register to vote through the close of business on October 10th. So, and just to clear up, we always get questions. You can't be registered to vote in two different places, so you have to pick your home and where you are registered to vote at. But unfortunately, Georgia law won't let you vote in two different places. So advanced voting will begin October 16th, and advanced voting will not be at City Hall this year. It will be at the Raven County Elections Office in Clayton on Joe Dotson Circle. If you've gone down to the county to vote in the county election, that's probably when you've gone there. It's kind of on the bottom of the Civic Center. And then on election day, voting will be held at City Hall. So you can come to City Hall to vote on election day, and that's November 7th. On the Fall Fest is scheduled for Saturday, October 21st from 10 to 4. We will be looking for lots of volunteers. Expect to see an email from me later today. We've got lots of spots to fill, so if any of you can help out for a couple of hours, I won't take up your whole day. I want you to enjoy the festival, but we do need a lot of help to make sure that everything goes smoothly. So we would appreciate your help on that. And everything else I sent out to you by email. If anybody has any questions, let me know. But in the essence of time, I think I'll skip reading all of it. Yes, ma'am.
Question, Linda, where will the votes be counted? Traditionally, we've counted them at City Hall, is that still?
Yeah, they will be counted because they'll close out the machines and once we do the close out, we'll have the numbers after the 7 o'clock closing.
Okay, would you get a mic and redo that again?
Yes, sir. The election will be on that Tuesday on the 7th and polls close at 7. And after the polls are closed, we should be able to get a tally not too long after the 7 o'clock close.
From the county?
From the county, even though they're conducting our election, it still will be at City Hall. We should be able to give you some numbers.
Okay, so traditionally, the candidates have gathered down there that night to hear the results of the election. So that's what I was interested, in knowing and letting you know that we'll continue to do that. One other thing I failed to mention in Mayor remarks, if you remember, a couple months ago, Myrna came to us with some suggestions about use of the Covered Bridge property and some proposed work and improvements on the lake at the park. Just wanted to give you an update that I have talked to the owners of the Covered Bridge property. I have proposed to them the idea of the city possibly leasing that portion of their property that has the Covered Bridge and making improvements to it if the council decides they want to enter into a lease similar to what we have on the overlook, the waterfall, and the park property. The situation with it right now, to refresh your memory, is that we have a lot of people stop at the overlook. And there's a little trail right there that leads right up to the Covered Bridge. And I see a lot of people going in there. Also, the old road that becomes the waterfall trail comes out right there. So a lot of people have access to that property and our waterfall trail. Unfortunately, there's a very dangerous area at the Covered Bridge where you step across to try to get onto the Covered Bridge. Somebody has placed a board there, but that crevice continues to increase in size and it's very dangerous. And if the council decides to do it, if they're willing to lease it to us on the same terms that we have with Mr. Barrow on the other properties, it could be that we could make some improvements to that. And there aren't many covered bridges left in the state of Georgia. So it would just be one more venue for our guests and our community to enjoy if we end up doing that.
I have a question.
We have a question? Ms. Larson?
Does somebody out there have a question? You can go before me. Who owns the Covered Bridge? Is that what you asked on?
There is an LLC. The person I talked to is the attorney for the LLC, and I'm not sure if he's one of the members of the LLC or not. It has a name. Linda, do you remember the name of that?
I think it was Dillard Road Holdings LLC, which they are inactive with the state corporations division, but there is a doctor that was the one that's named in the mortgage and that kind of thing. So we went, found him, and then his attorney contacted us.
Ms. Larson, do you have a question?
Yes, on the city manager's report, and the one that I guess that Vaughn did was on the traffic stops. What were the traffic stops? I mean, what work are we doing wrong? And increase in animal, and what did that mean? Did that mean that an increase of roaming dogs or the bears being a pain in the neck?
Vaughn, you want to come up front? We have a mic up here so you can be heard.
Also, I'm going to let him give you an update on something that happened yesterday that is very positive for Sky Valley. That-
There's a mic right here, Vaughn. Is it on? Yeah, it's on.
Okay.
You have to get real close to your mouth, though.
All right. Which, Ms. Larson, you have a question on this? What was your specific question, ma'am?
It's about traffic stops and the animal. You'll be on this row, I believe, in August.
You want to know what the specific number means?
No, I know what the number
Okay.
means. It just means, what are we doing that we should not be doing?
Most of the people that are getting stopped are for simple things. A lot of it is just not paying attention, being so familiar with the roads. We get a lot of people who love to run this little stop sign right here at Ridgepole. It's not a California roll, stop means stop, and we've had a couple of close encounters there. Also, we have a lot of reports and complaints on still speeding coming up the mountain. Well, part of that is people coming around those curves, straddling the yellow line, and when you meet oncoming traffic, which usually you guys that live here are the victims of this because it's the people passing through that are running you off the road. Because a lot of you guys come to us and tell us, hey, this car just came around the curve on the wrong side of the road. And well, by the time we can get there, they're gone. So a lot of that, we've been really trying to slow people down and bring them to the attention of, hey, that's a 25-mile-an-hour zone. You know, I was behind you and I was running 50. Okay? It's not rocket science. That's probably the crux of our problems right there. And it's usually for the outsiders coming through. They're flying out of Scaly and they don't tap a brake till they get to the overlook where that real hard curve is. Well, it drops there at the state line, it drops again in City Hall, 35, 25, and they're running 50 and 60. So when you guys pull us over, we feel your frustration because a lot of times we can't find them because they're already gone by the time you find one of us. So that's been a lot of the traffic stops. Also on our roads here throughout the town, I know we all love our SUVs. They're larger than the road, half the road anyway. So be aware that you keep on the right-hand side of the road, not down the middle. Because when you meet someone in a curve, if they're not paying attention, they will hit you. We've had that happen. Remember, keep to the right and you'll be able to negotiate these curves. We have a lot of mirrors up and they help, but they don't help in all cases. And just to reiterate, Alpine is one way. That means not the way you're going, it means the way the signs say. When it says do not enter, don't hit me with the technicality. Well, it says don't enter, but it doesn't say one way. Well, what do you think do not enter? Right? Don't go. Alpine is one way. Okay. So those are some of the problems we've had. We've also had a lot of large trucks because of storm damage, real estate sales, people doing a lot of work. We have large trucks on our roads, and they take up a lot of it as well. So a lot of it is just kind of maintain your lane, and we're just trying to bring it to people's attention because we watch people, we know who the people who repeatedly do the same thing. We may not stop you every time, so when we stop you, usually we've seen you do the same thing 2 or 3 times. Okay. So, I mean, we're a small community. We know everybody. We're getting it. And I know most people, you know the cars especially. So that's what a lot of that is. Animals, well, the bears, as we've done a lot better. We've had a lot less bear encounters. We've got the bird feeders in. Take the food supply away, the animals will go away. The only ones we've had here lately has been something that we do wrong. We leave our bird feeders out, we leave our sliding doors open with food in there. Well, you're ringing the dinner bell. Okay, they're going to come and get it. And they're teaching their children, because they all have cubs right now, to come and find food sources. Well, your house has become a food source. When you feed them, it's a food source, and they will come, and now they're training the next generation to come there. Well, your house don't look much different than his house to a bear. It's a house. There's food in it, and that's what we're training. Our alternatives given to us from DNR was take remedial measures. We're shooting them in the butt with rubber buckshot, trying to scare them off and run them off. We're hitting them with bear spray, trying to run them off when we can. If those measures don't work,
then they want the animal to be put down. That's the last option, okay? But if you keep putting food out, they're gonna keep coming, and the remedial measures will not work. So that's been the biggest problem that we have with the animals. Coyotes, pretty much, we haven't seen much of them lately. So that was another concern that we had several months ago.
Well, I have a quick question.
I did have one other thing to add. This was before I came here. But before I came here, the citizens of Sky Valley had a golf tournament where you guys had a fundraiser for the purchase of a Lucas machine, which is a life-saving machine which does compressions on someone who's in cardiac arrest. Well, that machine had been purchased and then at the Dillard Fire Station in Raven County. Well, 2 days ago, guess what? It saved a life.
In regards to traffic on 246, 2 months ago, you were authorized to get a radar sign out there to notify people of their speed. To me, that was just something to pick up the phone and make an order, and what happened?
Well, we got several bids on the phones. We looked at that, and from what I understand, we're still in the process of trying to find the right sign. There's several different features about the sign that we wanted to get that when I spoke with the actual manufacturer, he thought it might not be optimal for us. So the problem that we're having with that right now is the distance. If you know anything about radar, it has to track you for so many feet before it can get an accurate reading. When the areas that we kind of need them is so curvy that it's going to be hard to get at. So we're looking at one that requires less, which also may increase our cost, unfortunately. So we're still looking at, we got 2 or 3 companies that we're looking at right now, but the one that we originally wanted needed a lot more distance than what we actually have on our roadway.
We also asked them to come up and demo, and they were not willing. So far, the companies that we talked to were not willing to come up here for one sign. So.
That was the big thing, was they wouldn't demo it because we were only authorized for one sign.
Question in the back, right back here.
One of the things I was really concerned about when I went down there, the truck went down, I don't know, I saw a truck one day that was so long, black that was so long, that it was not possible to get around the corner without going on your side of the road. When I saw where his tail end of the truck was, it was almost to the edge. Is there any statutes around here that tell people how long the truck goes? That was really dangerous. He was way over on a blind corner, way over on the other side of the road, so he could get his tail end of the corner. That was good scary.
In the actual city, as far as I'm aware, we do not have a link. Now, the Georgia DOT has them on their highway. The problem that you're having there is if they have a permit to operate in Georgia, then Georgia has issued them that permit, then they're okay to drive on that. That is a state highway. And coming out of North Carolina, a lot of the complaints we get is right there in Mount Junction. Well, that's North Carolina. I can't help you with that.
This was in our area. One of the
They probably came from
one
there.
other big comment. Are you going to have the Georgia DOT sign out there? Those things, they finish the
We cannot understand. Can you repeat the question?
He wanted to know if the DOT signs would remain forever on 246. The orange signs?
We got 23 signs on our little stretch of road that we was involved with. Is there any pollution around here?
We have no control over the state putting signs on their right of way.
Unfortunately, that's not permanent sign. Roads are not permanent.
Money, can we contact the OT about that and see when they're going to remove the temporary sign?
We can ask them.
Okay. Barbara?
Can people please come up and use the microphone? I have new hearing aids, but I'm still having some difficulty thinking.
Thank you. I want to commend the city chief of police for doing research and research and research before we buy this sign, which comes up here and doesn't work and doesn't have the radar. Goodness me, don't make a quick decision without complete research and investigation. Good for you.
Thanks, Robert. Okay, there's no other questions. We'll move into new business. The first item of new business is to consider the proclamation for Red Ribbon Week. I got in late last night. Nobody thought I was coming, so my folder is not indexed, and so I'm going to let somebody else read those or cover them. Linda, if you would go over that.
We've received a letter from an Etowah Valley young Marine asking for our help to recognize Red Ribbon Week, the last week of October. Says the young Marines in our great state of Georgia will be actively participating in this nationally recognized anti-illicit drug awareness event, and they needed our help. So we have prepared the proclamation for Red Ribbon Week. It says, whereas communities across America have been plagued by the numerous problems associated with illicit drug use and those that traffic in them. And whereas there is hope in winning the war on drugs, and that hope lies in education and drug demand reduction, coupled with the hard work and determination of organizations such as the Young Marine of the Marine Corps League to foster a healthy, drug-free lifestyle. And whereas governments and community leaders know that citizen support is one of the most effective tools in the effort to reduce the use of illicit drugs in our communities, and whereas the red ribbon has been chosen as a symbol commemorating the work of Enrique Kiki Camarena, a drug enforcement administration agent who was murdered in the line of duty and represents the belief that one person can make a difference. And whereas the Red Ribbon campaign was established by Congress in 1988 to encourage a drug-free lifestyle and involvement in drug prevention and reduction efforts. And whereas October 23rd through the 31st has been designated National Red Ribbon Week, which encourages Americans to wear a red ribbon to show their support for a drug-free environment. Now therefore, this was done in Milner's name because we didn't think the mayor was going to be here. I, Milner Lively, Council President, do hereby proclaim October 23rd through the 31st, 2017 as Red Ribbon Week in Sky Valley, Georgia, and urge all citizens to join me in the special observation.
Do we have a motion to issue that proclamation? We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion?
I would like to know if somebody would like to team up with me to put together a whole lot of red ribbons. I'd be glad to head that up. Put some pins. Barbara? Thank you, Jan. Barbara, Jan. All right. And the rest of the outfit, I'll get you.
There's a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. The motion carries. Next is consider approval of the intergovernmental contract between Raven County and the City of Sky Valley, providing for use of Raven County Detention Center by municipal prisoners. That's a continuation of an annual agreement that we signed. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
I have one question.
Sure.
And that is, this agreement runs from January 1st of 17 until December of this year. Why are we waiting till now to do this? Why was this not done in the beginning of the year?
We've had an existing agreement. We don't normally do it on an annual basis, but we have a new sheriff, and I guess he wanted a new one with his name on it, so they just brought it to us.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of approval, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries. We have another request to ratify a quit claim deed, clear title on a piece of property by Barbara Botner. It's Ridgepole area, Part 2, Lot 178A, and it's 4/100ths of an acre.
This was done by email, so you're voting to ratify your email vote.
Okay, all right. Then we're ratifying something we've already approved through email. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
I have a question for the attorney, please. The mayor has suggested I recuse myself from all real estate in Sky Valley, even those that I do not have a financial interest in, and this one I do not.
That's not what I said. What I said was, if you felt that you had a conflict of interest because it was some property that you were dealing with, then that you should recuse yourself.
Now, please remember, you
Yes.
should and may recuse yourself from any council votes that pertain to your business. You are the business you are in, and the clients. I understand clients-wise, but you said the business I'm in, so just wanted that clarified from you, sir. Am I exempt? Can I not vote on any business in real estate?
I would have to look at that issue, specific issue, but I think certainly something.
Did you use the mic too? Put it up to your mouth so we can hear you real close.
I'd have to look into that specific issue of whether you would be required to remove yourself from all real estate related matters. But, so I don't have a specific answer for you, but I would think it would be something where you would certainly need to use your discretion. So I will look into it and get you a response.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to ratify. Is there further discussion? All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. The motion carries. The next item is consider appeal for tree application for Alan McElroy, 55 Appalachian Point. Linda, would you cover that for me?
And I believe Alan is here. I told him that I would present it for him. He is requesting a tree cutting permit. His property is at the end of Appalachian Point and Winding Ridge. He's got about 5 acres that comes down to the highway on 246. He says that going back to the appeal, in our ordinance, we require that you remove all tree debris when you have a tree cut within 14 days. So his appeal is that the trees be allowed to stay on the property where they're cut. Due to the difficulty in retrieving the debris and the monetary hardship, it would require to remove it. No one else will see the trees, and no residential properties back up to his property. That is his request, and we don't have the authority to do that within our scope of the ordinance, so that's why we have brought that before council.
So our ordinance requires that they be removed.
Correct, our ordinance would require that it be removed. Some of it could be cut and stacked on the property for use as firewood, but we typically don't allow people to leave the debris. I understand if it falls and it's not cut, and it's just a dead tree, we don't make you remove that. But in our ordinance, if you cut the tree, then you're required to drag the tree out of it. And in this case, he says that the property is too steep, and the quotes that he has gotten have made it to where there's no way he could cut the trees if they were required to be removed.
Do we have a motion?
I would like to make a motion to consider on, I'm not new at this, give me a break here. When we've got a situation like that, and he's got 5 acres, and you can't see what the daylight's out there, why not let him just let them do their natural nature thing and give back to the earth as they rot? I guess that's a motion.
You need to make the motion.
Okay, that's my motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Awesome. I think that's setting a precedent. Get real close to the mics.
Anytime you make a variance, you set a precedence. But, I mean, each case in this situation will be different, so I don't know that it's a precedence that you can't overcome.
Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye. All those opposed, same sign. Okay. By ordinance, you are required to vote, and if you do not vote, you have accepted the motion. So,
Can I make that statement? This is 5 acres, so we don't set a precedent on smaller lots. Shall we ask her to amend her motion that we approve this since the property is greater than 5 acres?
Yeah, no,
okay, I'll get right to you. Okay, Connie, Mr. Durpo has asked you to amend your motion to properties that are 5 acres or larger.
Sue is shaking her head, and I need to know why, because I value your
This is a
opinion.
hardship for so many up here, and if, again, their properties do not abut another property or create an eyesore, but it becomes a financial hardship. Again, I go back to what I hear of the tree ordinance meeting, paying attention to the National Forestry recommendations for tree coverage per acre.
I think the amendment to the motion would be changing the ordinance, and I don't think we're in a position to do that. I think we should rule on the specific request that has been made. Further comment, Dr. Gill?
Do I need to make another motion?
Not yet.
Steve, use the mic, please.
You have to get real close to it.
Steve Mason. The only point I was going to make is this is on the other side of 246, up off of Winding Ridge Drive, and so it really is pretty inaccessible. I don't think you'll see any timber being cut.
Is there further discussion of the motion? I'm going to ask. Okay. Yes, Mike. Come to the mic. Mike.
One of the things that bothers me about this motion, and a lot of the tree ordinance in itself, is the fact that if you look at the properties around Sky Valley, the number of trees that have fallen and are sitting there decaying on everybody's lots, I think is beginning to get to the point where, to me, it looks like a fire hazard. I don't know whether that's possible or not, but I know that there's a lot of debris in every lot, and nobody clears it. I mean, it's not like I clear mine, or they're there, they're falling over, they're dead, and there's a mess. And all the empty lots around here have tons and tons of dead debris on them. They're never going to get removed. And to make special calls on pieces of property like this for a dime, it's going to cost thousands of dollars to drag that stuff up the hill and out. Seems like a bit of an overkill.
Thank you. I'm going to, all right, we have one more, Lynn Becker.
I'm going to yell. We have a lot of ordinances, and my question is, we have a lot of ordinances, do we ever make exceptions on a case-by-case basis, like the water? I just wonder if this happens.
Yes.
Someone's honest and saying, we're cutting a tree, you never see it, but they're asking about
Okay, I'll tell you what happens is someone applies for a permit and our inspector goes out there and our inspector instructs him according to the ordinance. If he does not want to comply, then he can do what this gentleman did. He can appeal to the council. And that's what has happened in this one specific instance. But there are different things that come up quite often that we consider, and sometimes we go along with and sometimes we don't. So now we have a motion and a second on this appeal for the tree application. I'm going to ask this time for those who are in favor of the motion to raise their hand.
Read the motion again.
The motion is to grant the appeal.
Grant,
Just that.
and this is not going to set any precedent, it's anything else.
Our attorney has said no.
I'll make a motion to.
We've already got a motion and a second. All we need is a vote. So if you're in favor, please raise your right hand. 3, 4, 5. The motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is also to consider an appeal for a tree application for Keith A. Graham, 299 Winding Ridge Drive, number 315. Linda, if you would read that request.
Is Mr. Graham here? Do you want to present yourself? Okay. Okay. We have a letter from Mr. Graham asking for an appeal. I've made application to remove a dying tree that threatens my home at 299 Winding Ridge Drive, Sky Valley, Georgia. In this case, I am requesting that you waive the tree ordinance requirement that the trunk of the tree be removed from the property. This tree is approximately 100 feet tall and 4 feet in diameter. To take down the tree, cutters will first remove all branches. I will cut up the trunks of the larger branches for firewood as the ordinance allows, and the remaining debris from the branches will be removed by the contractors. However, I am requesting that I be allowed to use the remaining approximately 50 feet of the trunk as an erosion control barrier on a section of my property that has an approximate 20-degree grade. The trunk will be dropped across the grade to help control water runoff. Safely taking down a tree this large, the tree must be sectioned and lowered in an area not accessible to large machinery is a significant cost. Forcing me to also remove this trunk greatly increases the cost of removing this hazard to my home. Additionally, removing the trunk on such a steep grade creates significant safety hazards and would tear up a significant amount of small vegetation, also resulting in erosion damage. Thank you for your consideration. Keith Graham.
Could everyone on council hear what the request is? Does everyone understand what the request is? Okay, do we have a motion?
I will make a motion to grant this request because he's going to use that 50 feet of that trunk of that tree to save some erosion on some property.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries. We now have the final item of new business, which is a discussion of the city's financial policy. Mr. Durbo sent out an email to the community, and in it he requested that we have the city attorney come and answer some questions that he had in his email. The city staff has spent a good bit of time gathering the information, reviewing it with the attorney, sending the attorney all the information, and they have spent some time. So what we're going to do, most of this we've been discussing at meetings for the last few months. The first question for the attorney is an opinion regarding the handling of the park project and walk path project individually and in whole, and if they were performed within the purchasing policy of the city of Sky Valley. Mr. Perry.
Based on everything we've reviewed and been provided, and reviewed the financial policy, we believe that the park project and walk path both comply with the city of Sky Valley's purchasing policy.
Second question.
Use that mic, put it right up to your mouth.
You have to get it right up your mouth, right into it.
Play like a pilot.
In short, we believe both projects comply with the city's financial purchasing policy.
Second question, an opinion from our city attorney, is stacking legal? If so, in what instances are they allowed, and are there instances where it is not allowed? Mr. Perry, if you would explain to everyone what stacking might mean in the legal leads.
My understanding from the question, and Mr. Dupro, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but rather than stacking, I view it more as subdividing a particular project into smaller pieces, rather than doing the whole project as one. Is that?
That's basically what it is, taking a single project and dividing it up into multiple small projects.
So with that definition of stacking, there's times the law does not allow a city to subdivide construction projects. It's controlled by a statute. The Georgia statute prevents a project that's over $100,000 or more from being subdivided into individual pieces and then being completed piecemeal. Now, the city's financial policy doesn't have a similar, we'll call it anti-stacking provision, just for ease of use for discussion. So there are times when stacking is illegal and there's times when stacking isn't illegal. Now, the Georgia statute, even with the $100,000 limit, still has a lot of exceptions to it, as do most statutes. One exception is when the city or the municipality is doing a lot of the, or some of the work themselves. That's one specific example of an exception to the general rule that you can't subdivide those particular projects into smaller projects.
Okay, thirdly, an opinion from our city attorney, is the practice of stacking allowed and defined in the purchasing policy of the city of Sky Valley? And I think you just answered that one in the previous question.
I'd like a clarification on his answer to that particular question. He's saying it is not addressed, to my knowledge, in the purchasing policy of the city of Sky Valley. Therefore, does that make it allowed or disallowed?
Jeff, pull up the microphone.
Use the mic, please. Thank you.
My understanding of your answer to the previous question is that stacking, I'm questioning, is stacking defined and allowed per the Sky Valley purchasing policy?
Stacking is not addressed in the city's financial purchasing policy, so therefore we believe that it's acceptable in certain situations to subdivide projects. Again, you have to go back to the ties in with Georgia law, so you can't violate Georgia law. But
all right, which I understand you say in our previous answer was for $100,000. So you're saying if it's not addressed, so it has to be addressed in there to be disallowed, is what you're saying. We have to add something to the purchasing policy in the future.
In your previous answer, Mr. Perry, didn't you say that under the Georgia statute that if an exception would be if the city is planning to do part of the work themselves, then it would be an exception to that $100,000?
that is an exception to the Georgia statute. There's, when you're looking at these situations, I think it's easy to sit here and say, well, stacking allowed or not allowed, and everybody jokes when lawyers say maybe, but I mean, the truth is it's a maybe answer. it depends on what you're looking at doing. You know, if we use the park or the walking path project, then we don't see those things as stacking that would in any way violate, because the city has a right to have a long-term vision for something and call the park project a long-term vision. There's nothing that says that long-term vision has to be completed all at once, immediately by a subcontractor. So when you get into this question, so what is stacking? So it's stacking saying that you can divide the walkway up into 100-foot sections and do it that way, then no, that would be something that we would believe would be disallowed. But can you do the walking path project as the walking path, as the bridge? Then yes, we believe you can subdivide those things. So that's not a direct answer, but I hope that clarifies some things for you.
Well, our purchasing policy clearly outlines $25,000 or more must be bid. It was known at the time the walk path was going to be $30,000. Can the city just decide on every project that they want to divide it into much smaller projects? And my other concern is timing-wise, as you mentioned. You know, I don't have a problem with the city, say, building a pavilion and finding out that, hey, you know, 6 months later we find out the pavilion is totally full all the time. People are really using it. You want to add something to the park? Great. But this was not the case. The entire park was known exactly what they were going to do. Same thing with the walk path. So it seems to me that that would be in violation, since the walk path is clearly above the $25,000 figure.
The statement you just made is totally incorrect.
You
In
really
the
are-
October 2016 workshop that the council had, the council unanimously decided to pursue this incrementally and in stages to see how far we could go and see what we could do and what we could not do. And we did everything in-house except for the things that we couldn't do that we put out for public bid.
Thank you.
Next question. An opinion from our city attorney is a project or purchase in which its timing and or being a single decision that clearly indicates it is one project or one purchase allowed to be deliberately divided and stacked into smaller single purchases. Mr. Perry.
And again, I think I addressed this a little bit with the last answer, but I think it depends on the project. You know, there was, some issues were raised, a question was raised about the purchasing of the 4 police vehicles. You know, that's something that's allowed to be looked at per unit cost, not as a 4 police car total. So things like that are allowed to be purchased individually. So it's not where the city's trying to usurp the policy. It's consistent with the policy to look at each of those individually rather than as we're purchasing 4 police vehicles at one time.
Thank you.
Excuse me. So you're saying, you're talking about the police vehicles. So we had to buy them individually so we didn't have to put them out for bid. Now, it's in our rules and regulations, anything over $25,000 has to go for bid. So if they're going to take and have this, and we can go around the corner and throw it out the window, then what the heck is the sense of having it in our charter saying we can't go over $25,000 without a bid? I mean, it seems to me that if it's there, and we've said we're going to buy 4 police cars, that's 4 police cars at that one time, and yet you allowed them to be purchased individually And yet, we've spent money beyond that to rewire, put in lights and all that, that added to the cost of the police cars. So you can buy a car, later on you can buy the wheels for it, as long as you don't have to go over 25,000.
Well, each car is an individual item. And so, based on the city's policies as written now, that's how we interpret it. And so, I think if the city council wants to change that policy or make it clearer so it's not open for interpretation, it's something we need to be changed by city council. But that's the way we read the policy as it's currently drafted.
Linda, is there not an example in the actual policy?
There is, in fact, the 25,000 is in section C of the financial policy, but if you go on further in that same policy, it talks about general policy. The city will recognize acquisition costs based on individual unit prices. Assets should not be grouped. For example, in acquiring equipment, if 3 personal computers were acquired simultaneously at $2,000 each, this would not be an asset of $6,000 consisting of 3 PCs. Instead, it would be 3 separate acquisitions of $2,000 each. Each PC would be recorded as a separate controllable item. So that's what we use. Also, I just wanted to add, we had 3 Subaru quotes, informal. We did bid them informally. So there were 3 quotes from Subaru dealerships for the police cars, in addition to a quote from Duval and a quote from Jackie Jones for other types of vehicles. But there were actually 3 Subaru dealership quotes when we did those cars. So we didn't do them under the 25,000 sealed bid process. We did them under the under 25,000 informal, where we got the written quotes from the dealership.
And I believe it was $22,900 was the cost of the car. And we used, our staff used equipment from the old cars to be used in some of the cars, and then we bought some additional equipment to be put into the cars afterward. Mike?
Bottom line is, what was the ultimate cost of each car? We got the 22.9 or whatever it was to buy a car. To buy a police car, just one that includes paint jobs, lights, the whole cars. That's the unit cost of the vehicle. Which you get it for 25,000 to 22.9 before it becomes a police car.
We've never bought a police car. All we've done is go out and buy used or new cars and let our people fix them up however they need to be fixed up.
Paint job for them.
Do I?
They did the paint job on them.
They came the color that they are.
Pardon?
They came the color that they are.
With all of the police,
We put decals on them, yeah.
they did all that, and that didn't cost anything.
Yes. I don't understand your question.
Well, the bottom question, the question is, what was the total cost of each unit, including the work that you did on it? I mean, if we're talking about a $25,000 maximum expenditure to get a unit, whatever it is, and you say, well, I'll do this, and then we'll pay more money to fix it up at the end, that still raises the cost of the vehicle. Is that not right? I mean, if you turn it into a police car, it's the final unit cost of the car.
We didn't ask for bids on a completed police car. We just bought a car and did it ourselves.
You did it yourself.
We bought some materials and did it ourselves.
You did it yourself at some cost.
Yes.
Okay. How much was the total cost?
Linda, do you have the information with you as to how much the decals cost and all that?
No. I can bring it back, but I don't have it.
we can bring that information back to you, but that didn't have anything to do with going out and buying a vehicle.
Sure it does.
Whatever you think, but Bill?
Yeah, my name is Bill Horton. I hope you all can hear me. Basically, what it gets down to is the intent. And I think
Hold the mic close.
the problem is with the intent. The intent is if we're close to, around, going to be flirting with the 25,000 for the total project, it should be put up for bid. And it shouldn't be cannibalized. And on the police cars in particular, I'm sure that by the time they were police cars, they were over 25,000. We had the same addition of costs that went on with the visitor center. The paving of the parking lot came out of our paving budget. It wasn't in the project. When you put a project together, you put the whole project together, that's the cost that you base what you're gonna go forward with, whether you're gonna take it out for bid or not. And I think the complaint that I've heard from most of the property owners is that that's just not being adhered to. And by the way, I disagree with a few things that you had to say.
Let me just say this. This is the way that the city has always done things to try to save money, is to improve an asset after we got it by using as much of our own people's time as we could. And every time that a police car's ever been bought, we fixed it up after we got it. So, Mr. Howard.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Neil Howard, former councilman. I was on the council when we approved in general the completion of the park.
Hold that mic close.
And I don't remember being the specifics talked about at the time that we split it up and all that stuff. But the point is, I think we all like the police cars we got. I think the police force likes the cars we got. And that's not the point. The point is that it wasn't discussed in a workshop. So you and everybody else and the council and the mayor could talk together and work out the details of this program. The thing I've been wanted the whole time I was on the council, and I didn't run last year, is because we don't get these things together, work them out in front of the public, and get all these comments out of the way before we go forward with the project. It's just do it, pay for it, and what the public has to say. All right, it's what it looks like. I know that's what has been done. Our city is beautiful, a lot of great improvements. I like the walking path for those that can't walk over by the club or don't afraid to walk on the golf course or something like that. It's just how we do some of these things. We need to be more together in our thinking and our talking. And I don't want to get into any legal arguments because I'm not a lawyer. But I implore the council that when we take a project of this magnitude, that we spend more time involving everybody early on. And I think we won't have this kind of meeting or these kinds of disagreements. I hope we can disagree and then move on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I agree. I hope we can move forward and all work together. You know, relative to the park, we talked about it for a long time. We put out information to the community, asking them for feedback, and then we had workshops. You know, we didn't have a workshop on the police car purchase, and maybe we should have. We've never done that before. We were presented with a need, and we did our job, and bought the cars just like we bought all the other equipment that we bought, because it needed to be done. And every step of the way, we had council meetings where the council approved whatever we've done. So I don't know much more that we could do, but I'm for anything that will keep people more informed and get them more involved. Next question. An opinion from our city attorney: is project or purchase stacking in the best interest of taxpayers, and should it be considered a best practice for the city to follow? And I'm assuming from the way that question's asked that you're making the assumption that stacking has been done. So, Mr. Perry.
Really, this isn't a legal question. It's a question that each taxpayer needs to decide whether they feel like what the city does is proper. I mean, as far as whether stacking is in the best interest of the taxpayers, that's just not something we're going to discuss.
An opinion from our city attorney: if stacking is legal and ethical, what purpose does the city's purchasing policy serve, and who determines when the purchasing policy should and should not be followed and otherwise stacked?
The city's purchasing policy serves as a guide to the city manager, the department heads, and council members for how purchases and projects should be handled. I think it's ultimately up to the responsibility of the city council to monitor purchases and projects and make sure that the city's policy is being adhered to.
So that's a subjective term, and what you're saying is purchasing policy is subjective to the city management. They can determine what and how they want to interpret it and use it.
No, I mean, the city's financial policy is the city's financial policy. So, but I mean, what is its purpose? It serves as a guide to everybody so they understand what the rules are.
And in my opinion, they have been complied with specifically. Our city manager has been working with them for 12 years, and rarely do I call her and ask her what the policy is, that she can't just give it to me off the top of her head.
Well, it's just kind of strange that certain items like the walk path was done piecemeal, although it exceeded the $25,000. But then we get a bid for a pavilion. Now, what's the difference between the two? What I'm trying to decide is, why did we just buy a concrete floor, then buy a set of trusses, and then buy a roof, and turn that into something we didn't have to vote on in the first place, speaking of the pavilion?
Can I answer?
Yes.
Well, the walking path was voted on by the city council. The city bought the materials so that we were doing it as much of it in-house as we could, only outsourcing the actual labor and then now the bridge.
Now, I understand that. I'm just curious as what guide do you use to say, hey, the walk path should be done in this manner, and then say the pavilion should be bid totally and then have outside project done?
Well, that's when I bring it to council. If council wants to do it in a way other than what I'm proposing, then I would do it another way. But when we talk about doing a project in-house or doing it a piece at a time, then that's how I've brought it to council, and the council votes on it. If the council wants to see the part done as a one total project with one bid, with one general contractor handling all the components of it, then council would tell me, we need to bid this out as one big project, and that's what I would do. But from the very beginning, when we talked about doing it at the workshop, we said we would do it in pieces, and we would do it but the funds were available. And we didn't know how much of that we would be able to do until we did one piece at a time, getting those specific bids in.
It was a feeling in that workshop that we'd be saving ourselves a lot of money if we pursued it that way rather than all the add-ons that a typical contractor has to have in order to do a full project. Also, we were able to adapt to conditions and things that happen as you go along without change orders because we were doing it ourselves. Mike?
Yeah. I've been 20 years up here in this Sky Valley, and I love it very much. Now that I'm a permanent resident, this is the first time I ever felt like I could get an input. And what I would like to know is, personally, sitting out here listening, is when we put this project together, I mean, you wanted to build a city park, was the decision made immediately to parcel up funding, in other words, split it up? Or was the decision made to go get bids to find out what the total package would cost to see whether the building of the pavilion, the grading, the walk path, and everything else? And personally, I think the walk path's an eyesore, but that's neither here nor there, because I think we made a mistake in how we did it. But if we had put the whole package together, what would it ultimately have cost us if we had somebody come in from beginning to end and do it? And take bids. You don't have to. You get bids and look at them and say, okay, this is too expensive. Now then, how should we go about doing it? Should we then do a walking path, or do a building, or do pickleball courts one at a time? But that, correct me if I'm wrong, but that doesn't sound like you did it that way. It does not sound like it was bid as a package first to find out what it was costing.
It was not. Council did not decide to pursue it that way, and we didn't.
Well, how, you know, from what I hear from Linda, who originated the project? Did you originate the project and say, we want to do this, or where did it come from?
We started with the survey to the community, and then the committee that was over the community activities committee met, and then it went from there to a council work session, open, public. I think there was 40 people there, 40-something people there. And then at that work session, I was tasked with going and getting different prices to start looking at what we could get accomplished with the money that we, had saved up and put in the budget.
Mike, I think Neil hit the nail on the head in his discussion here. What bothers most of us, I think, is the process. We're not, like I said, this is the first time I've ever had any input simply because I wasn't allowed to vote for 19 of the years that I've been up here, but for 20. But in this case, I think it's clear that the process that we're using needs revision. Somehow or other, to make things not happen so that people have so much. We just went through this with the tree ordinance thing. Now we're going through this thing. I'd say we've already gone through this with the tree ordinance thing, which went back to the square one, and now we're going through it with this process. And I think this whole process needs to get smoothed out. I don't know how you do it, but I'd be perfectly happy to contribute whatever effort I can to make sure that the effort changes. Because a lot of people I know are not happy with the current one. Thank you.
Well, in the work session, and we had held, we had worked with the Georgia Mountain Regional Commission, did a conceptual plan that was brought to the work session, and then directly from the minutes, it said we are in discussion and planning stages. Council's made no decision, and for 2 years, the city has set aside surplus for a potential part that the community wants. Council needs to decide if we need to move forward with pricing. There are different portions that can be piecemeal. It does not all have to be done at one time. It can be done as money becomes available. And then after more discussion, the mayor asked if everyone agreed to get estimates on a pavilion, on pickleball, on walking trail, and a children's playground, and stated the workshop was a brainstorming session, depending on the price, which items can be done as funds are available. Councilor Stiles suggested that estimates be itemized to determine which items we can afford. So with consent of the council, we would move forward with itemized pricing. So, I mean, from the very, very beginning, it was talked about being done in pieces. And that's what I did. And each
But, you
piece
know,
of that came to the council for a vote.
Thankfully, we live in a democratic society and a democratic community, and that's what these meetings and workshops and all the things that we do are all about. You know, it would have been nice to have this kind of crowd at the workshop, and we got input from the people who were there. But if we had had everybody there, you know, then maybe something might have been done differently. I mean, we only do what we think the community wants us to do, and then we vote on it up here in public meetings, you know. So I don't know really what else we can do to be more transparent and open than we are. The park was not my brainchild, it was the community that wanted the park according to the survey. And then the Community Activities Committee for the city got together and discussed it and requested that the council consider it, and that's how it all came about.
Are we through with the legal opinions, or there's still some to come?
We're still working on it. An opinion from our city attorney, the parking lot by the pickleball courts was built for the purpose of a parking lot, but financially categorized in the city accounting as an erosion repair project, is replacing a project or purchase intended for one purpose, but accounted for as a completely different purpose, legal, ethical, and/or allowed by the city's purchasing policy. In other words, park project expenses should be accounted for in the park budget category, and erosion control is solely for erosion control. If allowed, what purpose does a budget category serve?
Well, for this, it's, you know, it's common for projects to have multiple benefits. And so it's not required that if a project could fall into multiple different categories, that it be allocated between those two categories is fine. That if the parking lot's original purpose was to solve the erosion problems, for it to be categorized as in the erosion and road, or actually in the road and right-of-way budget, rather than as part of the park.
Linda, you might want to review how those expenses were recorded and what our auditor recommended after you asked her the question. I think I covered earlier how that came about. It was an eyesore, an erosion problem. It was dangerous. And our public works director said, I can fix that, and we fixed it. Linda?
I'm looking for our auditor's email, but I did email Jolie Nixon, who did our audit for last year, and ask her if the project had served two purposes, served the right-of-way purpose for fixing the ditch, for erosion control and safety issues, and then also served ultimately as available parking adjacent to the park. Where would she rather me log it? Both departments are funded by the general fund, so it's all coming from the same pot of money, but she recommended that it best be done in the roads department where I had it. It fit more as a repair and maintenance than it would be a capital outlay in the project, in the park project. So I just confirmed that, that's where I put it. It could easily be moved if the council would rather have it in the park project to show it there, but she prefers that it be shown in the roads department under repairs and maintenance.
Mr. Meyer, before you go further, there's no erosion control problem whatsoever in that piece of property. There was no need for any erosion control.
Everybody has a right to their opinion. You know, you're giving me your opinion. Our public works director said otherwise, and I happen to agree with him. The pipe was not there. We put the pipe in. It was an open ditch. And people had driven into it before. And the dirt in the bottom of the ditch was pulling right into the creek. You look at that picture, it's got a piece of pipe already in it that we put in there.
That shows where the whole ditch was even grass. There was no dirt moving, there was no.
You can't see the bottom of the ditch because it has a piece of pipe in it.
Well,
I looked at it before the pipe was put in it.
okay.
On another note, the council and taxpayers of Sky Valley have been told the city is not required to follow the same building codes and/or ordinances as the taxpayers. I find this hard to believe. Is the city exempt from state and/or city building codes? If not exempt, who inspects city projects to ensure they follow the building codes?
The city's not exempt from state or city building codes, but the city inspector is perfectly fine to inspect city projects.
Is the city exempt from following the same ordinances enforced upon its taxpayers? If exempt, how is it determined which, if any, ordinances the city must follow versus ordinances it is not required to follow?
And this is another it depends answer. Some ordinances the city's required to follow, some it isn't. For example, zoning ordinances don't apply to the city. So that would be an example of one that doesn't. I don't think there's a general answer I can give you that would allow you to open up the ordinance book and look through the ordinance and say, well, this one applies and this one doesn't. It's just something you have to look at on an ordinance specific basis.
I think a question was asked at an earlier meeting, and probably this has something to do with that question. Is the city required to permit projects that it does internally?
Is it required to get a permit
From
from
itself.
itself for projects?
Right.
I don't think so. I mean, just-
No, but
Actually,
we would-
I want to say that the statement that was made, and I'm referring to here, Linda, you made it and told us in no uncertain terms in one of the council meetings that the city does not have to follow building codes or its ordinances.
No,
And I do not remember exactly, and I wish I did, what the conversation was about at the time.
No, I did not say that the city does not have to follow building codes. That's a state law. The city does follow building codes. I said we don't have all the same regulations, rules and regulations that someone else might. You were asking me specifically about some permitting. So for parking, you were asking about the parking for the park. Would I have allowed a permit to be issued for a private individual that didn't have parking provided? And I said, because that's a zoning regulation, that the city is not required to follow those same rules under that. And I had talked to the attorney about those situations before that.
Now, I remember the conversation very well, thank you, and you're exactly right, that was the question. The mayor made the statement that there was no need for parking at the city park, that everybody can park on the side of the road. And I asked the question of you, would any resident be allowed to use the side of the road for parking to their house? And you're exactly right, that's how that came about. And you said no, that would not be allowed, but the city was not required.
The reason the city is not required to do as much as an individual would be required to do is we already have staff that work for us who can do a lot of those things, like a building inspector and a public works director. My statement about parking was that there's very limited parking in Sky Valley. If you go to a party at someone's house, they don't have any parking. You just find a place to park on the street or wherever you have to. Conveniently, it worked out at the park that we were able to create a little bit of parking while we solved another problem. I think that worked out really well.
Linda, I understood and asked you specifically, did the city have to follow building codes? And you responded, no.
No, the city follows building codes.
That's what
That's
you
the way
said.
you remember.
That's exactly
No.
what was said.
Building code is state law.
I
That's
know, but
not.
that's what you said.
No, that's not what I said. You may have misunderstood something I said, but I would not say that the city Does it have to follow building codes? We do follow building codes. I was asked directly if the park was gonna be ADA, and I said yes.
This was in the context of that bridge.
No, okay, now I know where you're going with that.
Do you
The
have to
bridge,
follow, do you have to follow building codes? The answer is no. That's what you said.
no, the bridge is not covered in the building code. That's what I said. The bridges are not in the Georgia building code. I checked with, that's, is regulated under a different, authority. Other than the Georgia ICC building code, that's not in there.
Yeah, I think this brings me to the whole thing of intent. If you had said that, we don't have to follow the Georgia building code, but we do have to follow this other code, then this misunderstanding might never have taken place. So it's the intent of what is said and how it comes across. And
Well, in that specific meeting, I didn't know that if it was in the building code or not. I said I would have to check to see if it was in the building code, because I didn't honestly know if bridges were covered, because we haven't had a request for a bridge. But after that meeting, I did check, and it's not covered in the building code, it's in something else. So that's the only thing I recall about that meeting, was not knowing if bridges are covered in the building code.
what is the something else?
I don't have it with me, but it's not something that the city has adopted, but there are regulations out there for bridges for sure.
What's great about these kinds of meetings is when there are misunderstandings or people hear something one way and other people hear it another way, you can bring it up just like you're doing right now, and we can get to what the actual answer to the question is. And I know, I understood what she was talking about. I knew we were subject to building codes. I don't know that anybody's exempt from building codes. But we have a building inspector, and that's what he does for us and for our community. Is any other? Go ahead, Bill.
Takes a while to get up here. I want to congratulate you and the council on pulling this thing off, because there was nothing, the intent, I think, here was to do what they've done, but to do it in a piecemeal fashion. You made the statement, and I attended that meeting, that you had $173,000 to build the park. And that $173,000 came from surplus of your tax monies. I didn't realize I was paying an extra $2 million a year in order to build a park. The original proposal, and Barbara, I think you said this also, is that we were going to put a park at the timeshare, which was going to cost about $15,000 to $20,000. And from that survey, all of this has come about. I didn't agree with what we did, but it's done, and I congratulate you on having the council to back you. I don't think they violated any laws, but I think the intent was not what we should be following for the future.
Thanks, Bill. We did have $175,000 that had been accumulated over a long period of time for capital projects. When I came on city council, there was $65,000 sitting in that account. We raised the property tax 2 mills to cover the fact that we were not funding depreciation in city accounting, so we didn't have the funds to replace equipment when it went bad. Most of what we had was bad, and most everything has been replaced, and that's most of what the 2 mills has been used for. And I think, in my opinion, as mayor for the last 4 years and with a CPA background, we've done some great things with the city as far as improving the equipment and funding depreciation for a change, and really getting the city on very sound financial footing without wearing out everything that we've got, you know, over time, and then have to replace everything all at once. So I'm very proud of what we've done. Any further discussion of the city's financial policy? If not, we will open the meeting up to public forum and general comments.
I want
Go ahead, Terry.
Real quick, I wanted to go back to a question I was asked earlier about recusals. I recall the language that is in the case law out there says that council members are required to recuse themselves from votes in which they have a direct financial interest.
I agree with that. Not overall.
Okay, we're in public forum now. If you would, please raise your hand and come forward to the mic. Al, I think you had your hand up first.
My name is Al Lee. On a lighter note, I want to thank the city. I want to give you a long overdue thanks on behalf of Laura and me to our police
Get closer
department.
to that mic, would you?
I'm sorry?
Get closer to the mic.
Not close enough?
Yes.
I'm gonna swallow. Okay, long overdue thanks, formally to our police department for providing assistance to Laura and me over the past now going over 20 months. I literally cannot say enough to adequately express my appreciation for our police officers coming up to our house and providing assistance, me helping, trying to get Laura out of the middle of the floor at, again, literally every hour of the day and the night. Couldn't have done it without you guys. Most recently occasion to call you was last Monday evening when she fell and cut her head and fractured her hip. And she had just been home for a little over 3 months. And that was the longest period since this odyssey began in February 24th, specifically in 2016. And she was discharged from Northeast Georgia Hospital yesterday, and she's back in rehab at Emory. And thank you.
Thanks, Al. Rule.
While I'm on the way up there, Mayor, could you give us a short summary of what the terms of your lease with on the property over there?
Yes. It's leased on a month-to-month basis. The lease is $1 per year. And if we decide to make any changes to it or change the use of it, then we have to get prior approval to do that, which we have done.
And that lease is revocable on a 30-day or 90-day notice?
Yes.
I'd like to go maybe a little background, a little history. Does anybody remember that about 20-something years ago, the POA, the Property Owners Association, built the pavilion over there at its expense on property that was owned by the resort and on a lease, and my understanding is there was a lease. I've also been told that there was never in writing, but in any event, that lease was also revocable on short notice, and it was understood or written in that if when the POA built the pavilion, that if the lease were terminated, that the POA would be paid something like $140,000 for the improvements that were made there on. Now, if anybody remembers when Merrill acquired the resort, and then at some point we had that he said, wait a minute, you can't come on this property anymore, and there was a cable put across there. And the POA never, after that, the POA never again got access to that property. There's a saying that probably a truism, that he who ignores history is doomed to repeat it. And we have the same kind of lease with the same person as we had before that on this property over here to the right, across the street from the postal facility.
Rule, let me.
No, wait a minute.
I just
I don't want to be interrupted until
Okay, but I'm just telling you, you're headed down wrong. I want you to know that where we built stuff, he does not own, we own.
Okay. I understand that, but you're starting to put money, and you already have put money into building a walking trail. You can't pick that up and move it. If you build a bridge, you can't pick that up and move it. And this guy, this person put up a cable over there. He can put up a cable over here. And you put, if we're talking about $30,000 on the walking path, and including the bridge, at least that much, if I'm not mistaken. And it's, I don't know if there's precedent for a city building a park on privately owned property. Maybe it's happened somewhere else. But it seems to me pure folly to do such a thing, especially in view of the history of the cable across the road over there. And in my opinion, any person who has voted to spend more than the value of one 30-day lease on improving that property over there, and I spoke a point some time ago that if the city wanted to build something there, they should buy the property. We said, well, he doesn't want to sell it. I said, well, why don't we condemn it? And by so there's a lot of red tape, and it probably can't be done. It certainly has been done in other parts of the country. In my opinion, anybody who would spend a lot of money, even the $20,000, $30,000 that we've spent over there on property that we don't own, and have increased the value thereof, if we should decide at some point to condemn it, then it's worth more than it was before we started. I think any person, well, who voted for that, well, I'm not going to say another word.
I want to give you some facts about what we've done.
Let me correct something he said.
Well, that's what I'm doing right now, Mike, and I'll give you the floor. I'll give you the floor next, but right now I've got it. We might have spent $3,000 or $4,000 on his property. The rest of that walking path is on our right-of-way, not his property. We have one small portion on his property that we finished, that he started, that will get you down to the bridge. We have not spent hardly anything on his property. We never intended to.
The bridge would be on his property or not?
Part of it, one side would be, but it also was planned to be a portable bridge that we could use somewhere else, or whatever we needed to do with it, sell or whatever we needed to do.
What about the children's playground?
The children's playground is and always has been considered and to be portable equipment that we'd be putting on his property. But if he were ever to say we can't use his property, then we'd move it somewhere else. Oh, no, Mike, yeah, first.
Yeah, as much as I hate to contradict my old friend Rule, when I took over as the POA chairman years and years and years ago.
Hold it up, please.
Okay, when I took over as POA chairman years and years ago, about 100, I was getting out of the hospital, and we had a lease with David Spears on the pavilion forever. We were paying David Spears $1 a year to lease the property, and we were in arrears in the POA because we hadn't even been paying him that much. And not only that, part of our lease agreement was that we would have all of our festivities sponsored by their food process if it was available, which we were also ignoring. And the lease that was written in those days was written by one of our great past people up here. I don't know whether he's deceased or not, Hal Williamson, who I think was one of our great people. But as soon as I took over, I was getting out of the hospital and I got a letter from somebody that said, "Don't you approve this new lease, it's terrible." And I said, "It's the same lease we had with David Spears." Once again, we were gonna get $1 a year, whatever it was, with Harrison Merrill. And we functioned under that lease as far as the whole time I was POA chairman. And we were using the pavilion for what we wanted to use it for, and we could do pretty much anything we wanted to do up there. So, Rule, sorry your history's a little bit in error, but, and he had just, Merrill had just purchased the property when I was getting ready to come up here and go to a meeting with him about the pavilion and other things when I had a bypass surgery, not bypass surgery, but several stents put in my heart because I was about to have a heart attack.
He did keep us off of that property for 2 to 3 years. That's when Tent City was set up.
Tent City was set up? That was late, that was after I was there then.
May have been.
Yeah, because
We were prohibited from going on the property as the POA, and we fought that battle back then to get payment for that. We didn't get it.
Yeah, we all know.
The tents that we put up on the.
Well, we had the tents already on the pavilion area out there. Yeah, we put the tents up and had those in place when I was POA chairman.
We added tents to that.
Yeah, but regardless, the changes happen over time, and I agree with the rule that you said we shouldn't be paying for property on Harrison Merrill's property because it's going to cost us at some point. But the history of it is we were in a little shaky grounds for a while, and we actually did build, Al Williamson, Bill Gordon, and that bunch all built the pavilion a long time ago with their own hands and the hands of some, and donated money. So, and that all went away, and the club now owns it. So.
Went away because of the bankruptcy.
Yeah.
The bank claimed that property.
Yeah.
That it was part of the collateral.
That's right.
That Merrill had put up.
Exactly. Okay, thank you all.
Thanks. Any other comments in public forum?
I think Susie had her hand up.
You have a question, come up, please.
Susie Poinkowski, Pleasant Mountain. Yes, ma'am. With all due respect, I would make a request of the mayor and council that they put forth a motion because of the discussion that has occurred and the feelings and things that have been said about this project, that a motion be made to terminate and to proceed, if it is brought up again, with the proper way, the ethical way, the presenting to the public in a more understandable way. Thank you.
Any other further comments? Ed?
Thank you. Well, I'm not a very good speaker, but I've been sitting here disappointed in this community that I love. We spent 2 hours complaining about things that have already been done. If members of the council felt when they were voting that things were illegal, that's the time it should have been brought up, not after everything is done. This community continues to split itself with what's been said here today. And I love this community, my wife loves this community. We talked yesterday, we've had our house on the market wanting to leave, but we decided we want to stay here because we do love this community. But we need to spend as much time working for the good of this community as we do trying to blame everything on somebody else. I know this is election time, and this is not a good time to be bringing up bad things that have happened. If you disagree, that's fine, but let's stay friends and make this community what it should be. Thank you.
Barbara?
I just can't keep quiet anymore. There's got to be more communication. You've got to let us know. We've got to talk to you. You've got to have an open air back and forth so that disagreements can be addressed early, not late. So exaggerations aren't being made. And again, here's the rumors going around children's playground. Let us know what your plans are. Give us a drawing, Linda. Give us a thing. This is what we're going to move on. This is what we can move on. Help us understand. That's how it is.
We have been in the process for quite a while now of looking at portable children's playground equipment, and also working with POA to try to put together a committee maybe to decide what pieces are needed and how to fund it. We do have some money left in the capital projects account that if the council decided they wanted to spend it that way, but our intention has been for that to be the last piece of the puzzle and get the community involved. Also, the other thing is that we are going to need picnic tables, grills, benches, a lot of things like that we're going to try to put together a program such that an individual can donate something in memory of someone or whatever. So that we finish the park, it'll be personalized to the community. Go ahead, Carl.
And Hugh, this is exactly what we need here, because I'm going to tell you, this is just my experience. I'm walking around and they said, you know, the children's park is going over on Harrison Merrill's land. I said, are you kidding me? No, it's not. And I asked somebody, he said, oh, no, it's not. I said, you're wrong. Then I turned around and somebody else said, oh, the children's park is going on Harrison Merrill's land. I said, you're kidding me. We wouldn't do that. Oh, but it's okay. It's going to be portable. I'm going, are you kidding me? I've never heard of portable. This is what happens here in this old community where we don't have full-time jobs. So Linda, you need to put out, yes, we are looking at the children's playground. We are not sure where it's going to be. Oh, we are sure it's going on Harrison Merrill, but it's going to be portable. You tell us first, so it doesn't become fiddlestick stuff.
You know,
and that's what I'm saying, Hugh. When you sit right here, we're looking, there's a committee, let us know that. Then we won't have to create all these hysterical things because we have nothing to do with our life. And you need to come to the pool because that's where all the latest gossip is. You know everything down there in the Aqueduct. But this is what, Linda, I would ask you. Let us know what's in the works. It doesn't have to be a fact. Just say we're working on this.
And then we have to count on people opening their email and reading it. Because I'm not good at that.
You know, the major points he made was communication, and I agree with you. It's the most difficult thing there is for any organization to do. I know the club has a tremendous problem with it, the POA, the timeshares, every group in this community has a hard time communicating everything that they need to communicate because some people read email and some people do not. You know, and it's very expensive to send personalized letters out. So we post things on every bulletin board that we've got. We post things at City Hall. We send out emails. You know, we put up signs. Go ahead.
Here's a great idea for you. We're going to have lunch with them once a month. in City Hall. We'll bring our sandwiches, we'll bring the tea, and we're gonna have lunch with them, and they've gotta talk to us what they're doing. And you can come.
That would be fine. Be glad
We have a great idea for the council, and you and the city staff, and we get to come and have lunch. You can we'll sit on the tractors.
to. I promise you, we're open to any ideas
Okay,
on
I
communicating
suggest
value.
that. I think we should.
We want to be as transparent as we can possibly be, but it can be difficult to get all the word out.
We're also videotaping this council meeting to put on the website. So that'll be another way for people to stay informed, because not everything makes it to the minutes. So we've been asking, we're trying it this week. Hopefully it's picking up the microphone. We're not too sure how the sound's going to be, but it will be on the website, and that'll be another way for people to hear all of the things that don't make it into the official minutes, because most of this is talked about at the meetings, but not everybody comes to those meetings.
Linda, you shouldn't have told that charming lady right there with the hat, the glasses on her head, because she will not speak again. And
So now that I've told everybody they're on camera, who wants to talk
Barbara, I'm ready for some of those sandwiches and tea, by the way.
Yeah, I'm hungry. Pimento cheese sandwich. Oh, thanks.
Hi, I'm Frida Solomon. Been up here probably about 35 years.
Hold it up close.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay, I've got a lot of things to say. I've been building them up and building them up. First of all, I never received a survey concerning this park thing. Second, I keep hearing about democratic and taxpayers, okay, we have no say. The majority of us who are paying most of the taxes, we have no say. We're disenfranchised. And it's one of those, we can't say anything. We can't vote. So you're making decisions.
Use the mic.
You're making decisions for us, and we have no say at all, nothing. And as far as the survey, I never received it. And I got a lot to say, but I'm nervous and I'm shaky. And my husband's gonna shoot me when I get home. I've been married for 61 years to an attorney, a retired Florida attorney. And I have one piece of advice for you, Linda. When you're asked all these questions, you ought to say, I don't know, but I'll find out. I'll ask an attorney, okay?
Thank you.
And where are we gonna get all these children for that park? We've got the ones at timeshare, and nobody uses them. And I'm not having any more children. That's it.
Well, interestingly enough, the Kitty Park was the #1 thing in the survey that people found.
I'm Al Poinkowski. What I'm hearing, or first of all, what I believe is that the council, the mayor and the council members have absolutely fantastic intentions. The lack of communication is apparent with the comments that are coming up right now. It's a big problem to communicate. It's a problem for a husband and wife to communicate. But what I'm reading behind the scenes is that there's the appearance of impropriety in getting some of these projects that are well-intentioned done. Most of the things that we're dealing with are common sense, and it's becoming almost convoluted to try and reach a goal. And I think that we've got to go back to maybe a basics. What is the project? Do we need to have the city attorney weigh in on a project? I think if we do, then maybe we're trying to skin the cat a little differently. So I think the people that I've met, everybody that's here loves Sky Valley. That's why I'm here. I love Sky Valley. And we need to focus on the future based on what has happened in the past. Not with this council, not with the council before, not with the council before that, not with Larry McClure. But we need to take it in totality and figure out where do we want to go from this day forward, and learning from what we've done right and what we've done maybe not as good as we could have.
Thank you. As far as impropriety, I really don't feel that anyone thinks that anyone up here has the intent to do something wrong. That's the reason we have the attorney here today who's answered every question that's been asked. And from what I've heard, I haven't heard him say that we have done anything wrong, thankfully. I will tell you that Linda runs the city. I meet with her once a week. We go over what we want to accomplish that week. She occasionally calls me with questions. But if the two of us can't 100% decide that what we're trying to do is the right thing to do, we do call the attorney quite often. And John Dickerson has represented the city for a long time, represents a lot of cities. He's probably the top municipal lawyer in the state, at least one of them. So we feel very comfortable calling him and asking him a question, because we never want to do anything wrong, I can promise you that. And I don't think that we have. Is there any other comments?
I have one quick question. And first of all, nobody thinks that any of you have gained personally. We're going to double your salary next year.
You won't have to double mine, because I ain't gonna be here.
You made the statement that it is a mayor, council government. I was under the impression that Sky Valley was a city manager government.
I don't know what the technical
Reporting to
term
the
is.
council who can hire.
Yeah, the point that I was trying to make was that the council ultimately makes all the decisions on policy and budget and hiring and firing and everything. The city manager, her job is just to implement what the council decides that they want her to do. And my job is to work with her to just give her another opinion, or two heads are better than one, or whatever. But that's what we do. We communicate often, and I think we have a great staff, a great manager. They've done a great job for us for a long time. And the good thing is, every single employee we've got will come out at midnight if I call them and ask them to do something for them. So I really appreciate how they worked with me for the last 4 years, and I know they'll continue with the next council and mayor. We need a motion to adjourn.
I make it.
Well, motion to second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
We're not eligible.